What's up, guys? It's Josh from Cardfight Empire here today, and I'm interviewing the man, the myth, the legend, our second place at BCS Albany, Bush Road World Qualifier, Albany, New York. So I'll let him introduce himself a little further.
Woo. Thank you, Josh. For the people who don't know, my name is Mike Duggar. I am a card fighter based out of southern New Jersey, Philadelphia area. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here. It's a good time.
Awesome, awesome. Do you want to go a little into like what you thought of the event, or how it was run, what the players were like?
Yeah. So, from my experience being in the event for the literal whole time of the event, it was fairly well run given Bushy Road's history with the Albany event. Like, I was there for the Round Zero fiasco and all of that, and we had none of that this year, which was great. The venue was really nice. There was a bunch of nice hotels in the area. There was actually food at the venue, which was super nice. I was super happy about that. Our head judge, I love the dude. He was great. Our floor judges were fairly knowledgeable. I didn't have any bad rulings. I didn't have a judge call on me, though, so that could have helped that. Overall, the event went fairly well for a Bushy Road event. I don't have any personal complaints about it, so that's up to my standards.
Yeah, it sounds like the Bush Road events have actually been a lot better this year, and a lot of people like really don't have complaints with them. So
Yeah,
that's a really good thing.
I mean, quality control, man.
Yeah,
I think that they're learning at this point.
they are, which is you could say a lot of other card game companies don't learn. Cough cough Konami, but yeah, but do you want to talk about the deck that you played was Luard, right?
Yep.
Do you want to talk about like why you decided to run that deck and what your thoughts were going into the event or what you expected to see, etc.?
Yeah. So there was a twofold reason of why I wanted to play Luard. The first one was, and this is a little embarrassing, but I'm going to share it anyways. So I went to a buy qualifier, whatever it is, a shop qualifier a week. Yeah, there we go, shop challenge. And I was playing Gears. I'd been playing Gears from that shop challenge to about a year before, like just nonstop. It was all Gears all the time. And every other event I had done fairly well. Like I got an invite to Nats with it. I did okay at ARG Nats, which was fine. I was happy with that. But I went to that event, and the meta had just flipped it over to the set 11 meta. And I remember sitting down across from Shaharat and sitting there like, this could not be a worse matchup. I should not be playing this build, but I don't have ZTB ready. And I had just gotten Luard back. I've had it a couple times. I've gotten rid of it, had it. It's a thing I do frequently with decks. And I had just gotten it back. And the other part of the reason, and something I had been thinking about, and I had been tossing and turning on it for like a month, was I started the game loving Shadows. It wasn't the first deck I played because it was in high school and I was broke. And Shadows were expensive back ETO4 meta.
Shadows have always been expensive in their history of being a deck.
Yeah, but like I had played the deck forever. I played BTO4 eventually when I had managed to scrape up the funds to build it. I played Revengers for the whole time that they were good. And that shop challenge really just brought me to a point of I need to go home. Home is where the heart is, and I need to play Shadows. Win or lose, that's all I want to do. And it worked out.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, you're right. it worked out.
I spent the whole week before just like crawling through YouTube, crawling through every registration that Bushy Road had, looking at every single Japanese event list. Like, what do I like? What do I not like? What do I not agree with? Watching matchup videos. What do I not agree with on their play styles? And what do I agree with and can borrow? And by the time that the regionals came around, I felt fairly prepared. There were some matchups I didn't know as well, but I knew in theory. And I definitely got to explore those matchups during the tournament.
Right.
But I mean, I knew how the deck played at that point. I have a very specific play style that I run with for most decks, and I could just kind of plug and play with Luard for that play style and do fairly well. So
Awesome. Well, you were talking about like the matchups that you got to explore and stuff during the event. Do you want to like go into what your matchups were, like round around day one and day two?
yeah, yeah, sure. So first round, day one, was just a regular old blaster build. It had all the bells and whistles, and that was a win. It was the guy was fairly new, and he told me that right outright, and he was very lucky, dude. Like triggers came for him whenever he needed to. He 6 damage heal out of my GB8, which it was the only game that whole first day that I actually used the GB8, which was just astounding. It's like he healed out of this only time.
Right.
But like, great dude. Nothing against him. It was just like, man, I wish I had that luck.
Yeah, exactly.
Second round I faced off against Amaru de Fenrir, and I would have had a bad day if I hadn't just built the deck a week ago and knew exactly what he was going for and knew I am not letting you get a large hand without sustaining a ton of damage, or a small hand with having damage to spare. One or the other is going to happen. And it just so happened, I think by the time he finally got to stride, he had 4 damage and 3 cards in hand. And at that point, I just knew, like, I've got this game, and I can kind of keep going. Great dude, great player. Just rush gets him.
Yeah, bad situation.
Yeah. From there, it started my favorite series of events, which are the Bladewing and Luard matches. And this happened frequently throughout the 2 days. I think I played more mirror matches and Bladewing matches than anything else. So, round 3 was Luard Mirror, and Luard Mirror is fine. I don't run into problems with it. When I go through my deck tech, like, I'll explain why I don't run into problems with it, and it'll make a lot more sense, but it's not a bad matchup for me. Most other Luard players dread it. They're always playing around the Phantom Blast or Diablo, and it's just kind of like, I'm always going to have a board. I'm always going to be prepping for the next turn. I'm always going to have stuff that in case you go into Diablo, I have stuff to sack off, but you're never going to be in a position where you're going to be ace. Makes sense.
Right.
Like, I'm going to keep you off your footing as much as possible, just so that way you never get that chance. Round 4, I believe, was against actually a guy I played at ARG Nats who was playing Blade Wings, and he had a bad ride game. He couldn't find his Sullivan, and it took him a while to just get going, and I laid on the pressure as much as I could at that point. Had him at 5 when he finally got to ride to grade 3 a turn late. Yikes. And at that point, it's just kind of he got first stride because he rode late, and I G-guard, I go into Spectral, and I finish it out by just calling massive numbers.
Right.
Round 5 was D-Robo. Ooh. Awesome dude. I hands down, the most scared match that I won. Because at the end of that match, it really came down to, okay, Break Ride and Legion combo. So I got double guard break, and I laid out my whole hand. It's like, okay, you need 2 grade 3s to get through. Are you going to get those 2 grade 3s? Gets one, doesn't get the other. It's like,
and then you're like, whew.
The weight of the world is off my shoulders, and now I can move on with my life. Round 6 was another Luard Mirror. Luard Mirrors or Luard Mirrors. I'm happy to play a mirror. It's a good day. Round 7 was the guy who was playing Asha, who made top 8.
My boy, I call him the first Hokage.
Ooh, first Hokage made me bad time. I felt like Madara. I felt like Madara at that moment. It was just, coming at me, 30k lines, first stride. There was nothing I could do. It was my only loss, day 1. It was no matter what I did, I couldn't play against it. I didn't even know what the deck was doing. I had him sit down with me afterwards and just like explain, like, if I see you again, or if I
Right.
see this deck again, how do I beat it, and how do I not lose to it? More importantly,
Right. I feel like a
um,
very high pressured style deck.
yeah, and I didn't see him again after that. He was in top 8, but our paths didn't wind up crossing because of where we were placed in the sitting. So I was very happy about that. That was actually a sigh of relief on me.
Mm.
Feel a little better. And that was day one. It was kind of pretty straightforward matchups. And I mean, best of 1, 20-minute rounds. It's fine. It was a
Right.
good day one. Day 2, which started the best of 3. So round 1, favorite game all day. Luard Mirror.
Yep.
Just
Always the
easy
favorite.
2-0. Yep, first game the guy tried playing a late game. He quickly regretted that. And then second game he tried to outrush me.
Mm.
Not not the brightest decision. He played 2 owls on the side, the grade 1 owl that I don't run, and I don't understand why people run it, but it gains 4K placed or something like that.
Oh,
Um,
Night Sky Eagle.
yeah, looks like an owl,
Yeah,
but
I was like Abyssalo? What? What? What?
no, I know the Abyssal Owl. I got those. Those were part of my rush, but like, he played those, and that was his only committal to rush. And it's like, okay, I'm just gonna drop grade 1s, pull back, drop grade 2s, Luard, stride because I started sacking stuff early and I started guarding early, and then just stride to Spectro. He was done. Nothing he could do at that point. Uh, so I 2-0'd him. Round 2, day 2, was against ZTB Demiurge Rush. And I gotta tell you, I had no idea what the deck did. I hadn't looked at it. I hadn't worried about it. And I went into the match, and he full out showed me. He showed me Demiurge. He's like, this is what I'm playing. I'm gonna get to it. It's gonna be fun. And I lost the first game of that round just because I forgot that Demiurge didn't let me PG.
Guard break. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about it. I was like, okay, I have perfect cards for days. He's like, no grade 1s, and it's like 53K. I'm like, all right, game 2.
Right.
Yeah, and game 2 was absolutely and completely ridiculous because it was one of the few games I only had a couple of games where I actually had to go into a late game scenario with Luard, where he went stride 1, stride 2 Demiurge, stride 3 mystery freeze, stride 4 prep for another Demiurge, stride 5 Demiurge. And then after that last Demiurge, he couldn't stride again, if I remember correctly. And at that point, I won the game, and I took game 2. And then game 3, I rushed as hard as I could, and he just never got off to Demiurge.
Okay.
So, but that was absolutely like a me bad moment. Like, I should have looked at this deck. I knew ZTBs got good, and it just never occurred to me like, oh, if ZTBs get good, Demiurge gets good.
Right.
Well, it does. So my last round of the before the cut to top 8 was against Blade Wings. And it was actually, I would play him again later on in the semifinals. Because we were at that point, we were top seed. So we were playing for whose standings are what. I was X and 1 between 2 days. He was X and O between 2 days. Our tiebreakers were good. So either way, I was in top 8. It was just whether or not I would see certain people again quicker. Like who I was getting paired up was really the question of that match. And first game, I rushed him down, and I took the game out second stride. Very happy to do that. And then second game went a little longer than I would have liked to, and we went to time, and he got me in time. So we were at that point of 1-1, and it was just we were completely out of time at that point, and it was like, okay, Either you guys take the double loss, or one of you takes a loss, one of you takes a win. And we were just like, okay, we'll gamble a little bit. And he's like, if I reveal even grade, you get it. If I reveal an odd grade, I get it. You cool with that? And it's like, yeah, we don't need to take a double loss. He reveals an even. It's like, okay, my standings are where I hope for them to be.
Right.
So,
wait, so
very
was
glad
the
about that.
even you win? Okay, so
Yep.
you ended up X1 and you ended up winning that one.
Yep.
That's like interesting because people
Yep.
usually like I didn't know that number one Bashir doesn't do like a draw for that, like 1 point each. And then also I didn't know that usually people in the Jacksonville regional especially, I just heard a lot of people saying like, okay, if we go into time, do you want to roll for it? Or do you want to like
Yeah.
figure out some kind of way to like not have us both have a double loss? Because there's like not really like unless you're like really salty with your opponent, I guess like there's no reason for you to both take a loss for like a long game that you just played.
Yeah, it's just, and I think that's one of those things that Bushy Road really needs to revisit, that ruling of. I get why they did it to discourage taking advantage of the time procedures, because people do that, and it's a tournament practice. It happens. It's a rule, and it's there for you to both adhere to and to abuse if it favors you.
Right.
But like I know other card games like Magic, it goes to a draw at that point, and I very much am in favor of that. Neither of us thought that we would get to time and not have a clear winner.
Right.
Honestly, at that point, it was one of those weird scenarios where like I took game 1, he took game 2 at time, so we didn't even have time to get a third game. We just it never occurred to us, and at that point, it's like, okay, we just got to figure this out real quick somehow, and we just real quick did the math. Like, both of us are still in top 8 at that point. Who are we seated with at that point? Is it more favorable for you to seat lower or for me to seat lower? And we played around with the system a little bit and figured like, okay, if you take the win, if I take the win, it's not going to matter either way. We're going to play pretty much the same people.
Right.
It's just going to be, am I playing you again right away, or do you get around before you play me again?
Okay. Fair.
And it happens that we got the round before we played each other again, which mattered. So top 8. First matchup was Blasters. It's the only time I had a really good Blasters player in front of me. And he pushed me. He pushed me to the edge. But I 2-0'd him.
Okay.
Luard late game really good.
Right. PG is basically the weakness of Blasters.
Yeah. It's Luard late game really good. It was like the second time out of 2 days I had to go into the late game. I was very happy about that. And we still had time procedures at that point, which was kind of a nuisance.
Yeah, I think in Jacksonville, like they might have changed that for the autumn because of the way that spring went, but I'm pretty sure in spring we didn't have time in top 8. I'm pretty sure.
We didn't have time in top 4, which made a huge difference. But top 8 we did have time, which kind of mattered, because first game I took and then second game it went to time, and I mean I would have taken it. I would have taken the game anyways had it not went to time, and had I not won through time, it just would have taken 2 more turns. Because I had already planned out and done the math of this is what's coming at me. He's already exhausted his resources. I know what's coming. Here's what I can throw at him. Here's how much guard is going to go out of his hand. I've got him in 2 turns. I just don't have 2 turns.
Right.
So time procedures got me that last one, but 2-0 still. So next up was the Bladewing guy that I fought the round before cut to top 8. And this game went a little differently. First game, I want to say went for an hour and a half.
Wow.
I tried early game rushing. He had a couple lucky sets to trigger, so that put a foil into my plan. I realized, like, by turn 5, there's no way I'm winning by conventional methods. There's no way I'm getting him to 6 damage. Luard does not have the engine to break through that. there's no way I can break through that constant soul charging. I may get one or two attacks where he does not have soul to use, but at that point he's built up a massive hand using all of his. Oh, I'm gonna draw two, discard one. I'm gonna draw a card because I place this card down and soul charge and counter charge. I'm gonna cat and do all these great things. So it became very clear by fifth stride. It was like or fifth turn. So really second stride, that there was no way I was winning by conventional methods, and I went into the deep late game approach and opted to deck him out by using Ezra's to constantly just go back to hand, send stuff back, Luard, send stuff back.
Right.
I was always guarding with the Belial Owls. I would not guard with anything else, because at the end of the next turn they would go back and deck, and I wouldn't have to draw from them. That first game went for an hour and a half. Thank God there was no time procedures. It actually got to the point the Neo-Nectar player who made top 8 had to leave because our game 1 took so long.
Really?
Yeah. So he had already finished up his matches. He had already gotten his top 4, gotten to the top 4 match, and he actually had to leave at that point because it had taken so long just. It made a difference. Game 2, it was a much quicker game. I didn't have to deck him out.
The Neo-Nectar player was playing against the ZTB guy that won, right? Nick, against Nick Amato.
Yep.
So did he leave before that was done, or after, or?
I don't remember specifically.
Okay.
I would think it was after it was done, though. Because I remember they were waiting on us at that point.
Okay, and Nick had already won that matchup? Or something? Like, it wasn't like the Neo-Nectar player won and then had to leave, so he gave the win to Nick, right?
No, I think Nick won.
Okay.
Because so top 8, my match finished super early, while the Neo-Nectar player was playing in top 8 against Jonathan Vallejo.
Yeah, I saw
that match took
a live stream of that match, and I saw you watching them. So, there was like a good 15 to 20 people from Georgia watching that match, and people were very excited about the outcome. But everyone knows why that is from my previous videos, so no need to go into that. But yeah, it's very. That's why he was doomed the first Hokage. Because he beat the final villain.
The power of the Hidden Leaf Village.
The power the springtime of youth. The power of youth. But I mean, okay, so you had your top 4 match.
Top 4. The other game I got to play normal, which was nice. And then last round was against Nick Amato, the guy who placed first, and it was the absolute closest games I had the 2 days. They were absolutely the best games. It got to the point we were sitting there, and he made a joke about something related to Pink Panther, and I just started humming the theme, and he's like, "This is great."
He said, "This is great."
The judge is just sitting there like, man. This is the most fun game of Vanguard I've watched in a while.
Yeah, it seems like it's really weird. Like, it seems like the finals where it would be like the most high pressure is when both players have like the most fun. Like, even in Jacksonville, like I had the most fun during my top 2, because we were just like trolling the hell out of each other. Like,
we were just happy to be there, and at that point the light was at the end of the tunnel. Like, we were both tired, we were both hungry. It's like, man, just let's finish this game.
Right.
Let's get somewhere. But that game was as close can be. I had him dead to rights both games. A trigger would have won me either of the games, and it just never came. So, and then he came back. It's like, you're groovy. Yep, got me.
Right.
So.
Well, that is fair. I mean, Vanguard does come down to that sometimes, as we all know from the anime. When Cosmo, the guy who plays Shadows, like, he's like, I need 2 triggers, 4 drive checks, first one crit, the last 3 not triggers. He's like, dang. I'm actually Or actually, I don't know why I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that I'm shocked that no one played Domination, but I guess that doesn't really come into play until next set when they get a little better and they get Mukuro and stuff. So
Yeah,
we
I
should
mean,
see a little of
Mukuro
that in
helps a
Jacksonville.
ton. Yeah,
Yeah.
that you'll see that. I will not see that.
Right. Exactly. So I'll see that a little bit in my matches. So we'll see how Jacksonville goes for me. But did you want to go through like your deck list and?
Yeah, sure. Let me just get this. How's that looking?
Looks good.
Awesome. So I'm gonna start with grade zeros, and then I'm gonna work my way up from there. Build a little suspense for the spicy tech cards.
Cool. Cool.
So my build is fairly cookie cutter. There's some things that a lot of people question, but it's really how I play the deck that differs from a lot of people. And I mentioned this in my matchups. Like, I don't like the late game. I love that Luard has this phenomenal late game. I love that if need be, I can go into it and I can play it, and it's great. But I really want my opponent dead by second stride. Then I feel really comfortable in my position. If I'm going into that late game, it gets less and less comfortable as it goes. So my starter is Creeping Dark Goat. And I didn't see anybody else all day that ran him. I looked at all the other starter options for Luard, and none of them compared to the fact that it's an additional time to search through my deck in case I miss Luard in my opening hand, and that happened frequently. So he just top 5 for Counterblast 1, check to see if you have a grade 3. If you do, add it to your hand. It was great. Hit or miss, I'm happy with it. So next up, we have 2 Draw Trigger Howl Owl. And number 1, they go into Soul. This deck runs out of Soul very quickly sometimes, and that hurts. Number 2, I really like it because when I place it on Rearguard, it has some value at that point. A lot of times in games, if I'm not feeling super comfortable with my hand, or if I'm in a matchup where I want you at 6 damage very quickly, I will dump a hand of grade zeros onto the board, including these. And these have not only the beauty of, okay, it's 4K boost, I can play it first turn, but it also has the beauty of, well, later in the game, it goes into Soul, it gives something plus 3K, it makes something else hit numbers, which is really important sometimes, and it pumps up those attacks that are just so crucial that if I missed that pump, it would hurt, honestly. So next up, I run 4 Belial. I love Belial. Hedwig serves me very well. Belial's, I would assume everybody knows what Belial does, but for those who don't, let me just read off the effect. That way I got it perfect. Drop zone, GB1, Ritual 3. At the end of the turn, if you have a Vanguard with Luard in its card name, you may put this card to the bottom of your deck. And then the other skill, which is not GB restricted, which sometimes matters, when this unit is retired from Rearguard for the effect or cost of your card, if you have a Vanguard with Luard in its card name, draw a card. So if you're sacking it for Luard's on stride skill, you draw a card. If you're sacking it for Orgeyser, you draw a card. If you're sacking it for Ezra's, you draw a card. Anytime you sack this thing, if it's your cost or your skill, you're drawing a card. It's a good day. All right. Next up, I run 1 singular vanilla crit. The name I never learned how to pronounce, and I never worried about it. Because I wanted 1 more crit to throw off people who are trying to count my numbers.
Okay.
I run 4 Raven because I do run a loop variant. I don't run the Old Man, which you will see later, mainly because they did not come in the mail in time, and even still, I think the deck worked perfectly well without them.
Okay.
But the Raven essentially, no matter what the skill says, it's rest, draw 2. Essentially what it boils down to. Sometimes you get additional calls off of the skills, you get additional sack targets, you get just all these great things that'll randomly happen with the Raven. But at worst, you're calling out two sack targets that make your turns just a little easier on your hand. Next, I ran a single Mage of the Rogue Eye Arcer, and GB1, when this unit is sacked when you are retiring rear guards for the cost of your unit's ability, retiring this unit may be regarded as retiring 2 units. So it's essentially a non-Diablo limited Karen. And then when it's sacrificed, it can go to the bottom of the deck. The second skill is not as much why I wanted to run it as the first, where it's just if I'm in a Link Joker matchup, all of a sudden I can call this out and then something else. I have my 3 sacks for Aura Guys Are Doomed or for Spectral Blaster, and I'm not really feeling the hurt. I didn't wind up against any of those, but it was there as a little tech just in case. And also, it's just a good card. You're never upset to run it. It threw people off of trying to count my numbers. Again, just a nice thing to have.
Right.
And then 4 of the effect heal. I did not run the unflip G-Guard. I tested it extensively, and I just did not like it in favor of what I wanted to run. But I left these in here just so people might think that I have it. A little bit of a mind game here.
Okay.
So I do lose a K of power with these, which mattered sometimes. It hurt a little bit every once in a while. But the trade-off was they thought I was running a G-Guard that I don't think was good, but other people do. So a little bit of fear
I
factor
use it
for
in my build, but I pretty much use it as like a flex, what's that card called? Agleam? Or like the newer version of it. I literally just use it to discard 1, draw 1. I don't ever use the actual flip skill.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I tested it I think I changed it the night before, and I'll show you what I changed it for, but I just never wound up, even like the Agleam skill, while it was nice, I just didn't find myself in situations where I needed that, per se. Alright, so that was grade 0s, pretty easy. Grade 1s, for Ezra's, you gotta run Ezra's. Ezra's is great. He returns from your drop zone to your hand and back to your deck, all for the sacrifice of 1 rear guard that's grade 1 or less. That also means you can sack him with Belial Owls, draw a card off of sacking him, get 1 back to hand, a card went back to your deck. This card is great. Makes me happy. Makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. Next up, 4 Abyssal Owls. I know a lot of people do not necessarily like him at 4. They'd like him at 2 or 3. My logic for it, number 1, it's countercharge. The deck is counterblast heavy the way I play it. I run counterblast frequently. This helps mitigate that problem. Number 2, and the really, really important reason why I run 4 of them, you do not hit Luard as often as you want to. In a perfect world, you hit him every game, and it's great. In the real world, I hit him, I think, 4 out of all of my games both days. So that being said, this is another way. Check top 7. Look for a Luard. Pitch cards equal to grade 3, so that way you have a Luard in hand. Shuffle. Oh, that didn't hit? Okay, I'm going to call out another one and search another top 7 and just keep digging. So that way, between these and Creeping Dark Goat, now albeit they shuffle after each one, I will have checked through 33 cards in the deck. If I do not find a Luard by then, I've lost the match and I've done everything I could.
Right.
Next up, 3 Kahidens. I do run the Diablo sub-engine, and definitely in this tournament environment, I really like it. Kahiden, it not only gives more power to my Vanguard, when I'm on a Diablo Vanguard, but it also gives this sweet on hit where if it hits, I get to call a grade 1, and if I have Hoel on the field, which oftentimes I will aim to, it'll also get plus 5k, and then Hoel's skill will trigger, and he'll get another 3k. The card put in a lot of work for me. I definitely love Kaiden in this deck. I think 3 was the absolute perfect number. 2 I found was often hitting a damage zone, so I couldn't get as much power onto a Vanguard when I was pushing for game. And 4 was over flooding, and I would have had to cut an owl for that, and I really needed the digging. So next up, I ran 2 Stride Enablers. I see a lot of Japanese builds running these. I don't see a lot of English builds. There were times when I did not hit Ritual. And it just happens. There are bad draws, and these help mitigate those a little bit. And also, they're just grade 1s that'll sit in my deck for most of the game. And when I need to go for them and I need to search for something and give them power, these will pretty much always be there, and I can count on them. Easy, consistent, and they're Stride Enablers. Next is one of my favorite spicy techs. This is Decipherer of Prohibited Books. And essentially, she's a mini witch skill. CB1, when this unit is called from deck, if you're a GB1, you can call a grade 0 to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So you can choose an owl, you can choose a howl owl, you can choose whatever you want. Just call it to rearguard circle. So this would specifically come out if I'm short cards for sacks, if I need to just build up a large hand, if I have Counterblast to burn and just want to burn it. That would be the instances where that comes out. Otherwise, it sits in there for those specific instances. Next up, I play a single Swordbreaker. I see no reason to run more than 1. The deck is hard-pressed for soul, even with the Diablo sub-engine. You do not have the soul to run more than 1. I oftentimes wouldn't use this in a game. I think I used it 2 to 3 times a day at the event. It's just I can't justify the Soul Blast when a lot of my other things require that Soul Blast to do much more potent effects. So, next up, I run 3 10k vanillas. It just happens to be this 10k vanilla because I had it, and I had 3 of it. This is where, had I had my old man, the Grozny, I believe, before the event, this would have probably been switched out for him. But during the event, these actually put in a ton of work. Just because 10k body, nobody's going to be able to rush me back in those circumstances. They'll be able to swing at rear guards, but essentially attacking my Vanguard with anything other than their Vanguard, it just won't happen. Next up, we do run 4 Hoels. Hoel is great. Hoel gains power every time a grade 1 is placed. If you're on Diablo Vanguard, keywords here, you need that Diablo Vanguard. But also, if you call a Kaiden, it gets countercharge and soul charge, which really helps mitigate some of the costs of the deck. It's a great card. Very happy to run it. Very happy when it lands in my hand. For grade 2s, finally, I run 4 Morfessa. I see a lot of people going back and forth on Morfessa. And my whole case on her was I was torn between her and Leafall. Leafall would draw me more cards, but ate up Soul Blast. Morfessa is almost always a 14k, put a 7k behind it, you got a 21k line with some sort of on-hit attached to it. Whether you ever use the on-hit or not, your opponent is going to be worried about it. All of a sudden, that's another grade 1 that can come out. That's another possible combat trick that can come out. You can all of a sudden call a field with the Prohibited Witch and then a trigger of some kind, swing for 11, or just Prohibited Witch into a Beely Owl, swing in a rear guard for 10.
Right.
A little bit of mind games here that just helped it out. Plus, good numbers. And counts as a grade 1 when you're at GB, which oftentimes really helped finish out my ritual count. For grade 3s, it's a Luard deck. I run Luard. Luard is great. I am very happy to run Luard. I'm not very happy when he doesn't come into my hand, but that's why I have cards that can search 33 cards out of my deck to hopefully find him. Yeah. He has a free stride for when you're Ritual 3, returning two normal units from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck. Usually, I found that I was returning grade 1s because I was going through grade 1s like nobody's business. And then his on-stride, CB1, sack a rear guard, call out 2 grade 1 or less. Really key words there, grade 1 or less. So I can call out owls, I can call out ravens, I can call out heels if I want to for some strange reason. Overall, Luard's great. I'm in a Luard deck.
Fun fact, I actually had someone ask me once upon a time why I ran 4 Luard to my deck.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness.
That was a rough conversation.
I can imagine. I've had some odd questions over the years, and I haven't had that one yet. I half hope and I half don't hope I have that one. Finally, I run a 3 Fang of Sharp Fang Witch Fadla. There we go. And her skill is when it's placed on rearguard circles, CB1. This is not GB restricted. She was released long before GB was a thing. Messes up a lot of people on that. CB1, search out 2 grade 0 units, call them to rearguards. Yep, and shuffle your deck. She is great on a rearguard circle. She's great to have in your hand. She's not great to have to ride. It's a very bad day.
I know the feels.
It is a very bad day when you ride her. As good as she is, Vanguard circle, your game is almost done when you ride her. That's why I run so many ways to dig out Luard. I love having her in my opening hand with the Luard, because at the point of turn 3, when opponents are trying to kill off my rear guards, they're attacking at them, and my hand is kind of dwindling. I'll go run Luard, call the Witch, CB1, fill my field.
Right.
Okay. There we go. More rush. More pressure before you hit stride. Perfectly fine with that. Otherwise, she was great for fetching out sack targets. I know a lot of people who run a variety of different secondary grade 3 options, and I tried a bunch of them, and Fadla, even though she's the worst thing you could ever ride on Vanguard Circle, in any other situation, she is just absolutely a godsend. And that's the main deck. So, Stride Zone. This is where a lot of people are not going to agree with me on some things. 3 Luard Stride. The reason I ran this, not because it's a great stride, it's perfectly fine. It would be a great stride in any other clan. In Shadows, you have so many good options. What I really ran this for is for the matchups that are going to retire my stuff. Because I knew going into this, I would probably see Blade Master. I would definitely see Darkness of some kind, whether it was Shaharat or Blade Wings. I would see Blasters. I might, for some odd reason, see Nubatama. So there were all these different matchups that I was worried about them retiring my stuff. And if I go into an empty board onto my turn, all of a sudden I can't generate my main source of advantage, which would be the Luard on-stride skill, CB1, sack, call 2 things. This sort of mitigates that problem. You don't wind up in the greatest situation because you're on a stride that essentially does nothing aside from that. But it does allow me to fill a board. It does allow me to gain some presence in hand and in board. And in late game, if I have one of these sitting face up and then I go into another one, flip up another copy. I can call a board, and sometimes it'll gain plus 10k just off of having some grade 1s in my set of Morphesses in the drop zone. So it put in some work. I was very happy with how it played out. It's just not what I would have run had the meta not switched at set 11.
Right.
Next up, I ran 2 Doomed. Doomed is great. Doomed draws me a bunch of cards. Doomed sacks a bunch of things, which draws me a bunch of cards, and it's first stridable. And it retires my opponent's stuff. I could not be happier when I stride into Doomed. It is a good day. And what pair of Dooms would be complete without a pair of Aura-Geysers? They're not there for themselves. They're there for the Doomed. They're there so I can flip one up per each Doomed. I have one for the start of the game. I have one for if I'm having trouble mid to late game. And just works out beautifully. I don't need any more than this. Any more than this was overkill. I tried doing 3 Aura-Geyser and 2 Doomed and flipping them up with a variety of my skills, but I ended up at such a tight space in this G-Zone that the extra crit on the Geysers just wasn't worth it.
Right.
Next up, I run 2 Spectral Blaster. This absolutely MVP of all of my games. This is my whole goal with this deck, is to pump this up as much as I can via Hoel, via Kahiden sacks. In any way, shape, or form I can pump this up, I will pump this up. It will have numerous on-hit triggers. Sometimes I will have all 3 of my Kahidens giving it +5 on-hit triggers. I will have my Hoel pumping it up with 4, 5, 6 grade 1 triggers from just spamming the Raven. So all of a sudden, he's massive power levels with on-hit. And without PGs, you're not going to survive it. At that point in the game, my goal is to have you at such a high damage count that there is no possible way without a handful of PGs you can stop it. And you won't have a handful of PGs because you'll guard my stuff. Absolute MVP. No, just great. I didn't have an actually use it. We tried to play the but it's breezes that just in case they try to. Right, more or less. I run 1 carnivore dragon. The reason why I run this, it's not because of the skill or because it kills 2 of my opponent's rear guard, so it does that, and I'm very happy to do that. It's mainly very forgiving on me. If I'm at and say I'm able to refresh at least 1 damage of mine this turn, so I can set up for the next turn. Whether any of the other parts of the skill pop off, I retire 2 of your things, retire 1 of your things, then I get power, or I retire none of your things and I get power. I'm refreshing a counterblast, and it's forgiving me for not having been able to take damage the turn before. It just came in so clutch, such a big help. And finally, for my G units, I run the GB8. If I'm in a late game scenario, this one's the game. On the spot. Normally, nobody survives this GB8. I will have a full board of grade 1s that are plus 15k each. I run 5 stand triggers, and most of them will be in my deck at that point because I will keep cycling them in. So the odds of me actually hitting a stand trigger to stand up another column, very high. This is great. It ends games. I'm very happy with it. Most people ask me why I don't run Phantom Blast or Diablo. And I gotta be honest, I love the card. It's such a good card. Everybody knows it. Everybody's playing around it. I did not want to commit the space 2 of or 4 of to that card for the fact that everybody's going to play around it and expect it. I would rather my opponent take advantage of it and realize, hey, he does not have that, then them try and play around it.
Right.
Because at that point, they're not playing stuff to rearguard. They're not pressuring me back. The game is mine. So it's part I didn't want to face, and it's a little mind game. If you figure it out, I'm a step ahead of you thinking, go ahead, play no rearguards. Don't give me anything else to be attacked. I will drop a perfect guard, your turn will end, and I can stand up and do all my shenanigans.
Right.
For G guards, I ran 4 Plot Maker. Plot Maker is good. He's 36k if you're at Ritual 3.
Did you say 4 plot maker?
3.
Okay, 3 plot maker.
Got a little tech for a matchup I really hate. But 3 Plot Maker, he's great. I'm never upset with him. He's just a good G guard. Best G guard for Shadows, arguably might be the best one in the game. Alright, my last and spiciest tech, Dismal. Because I really hate the D-Robo matchup. I abhor the D-Robo matchup. I do not like it when they get cheeky and decide, I'm going to put a full ball on the field, and there's going to be a Laurel there, and I'm going to swing into your rear guard. And your perfect guards can't guard that rear guard. Or you don't have perfect guards. Or, well, you may not have enough to stop this. No, I'm just going to Dismal. That rear guard cannot be hit. You just wasted your turn. It's back to me. I'm going to win now.
Right. I actually thought you were going to say that you use his Dismal for the Vanquisher matchup, because I hate when I get V-maxed. It's not a fun time. Alright, guys, so it looks like we lost Michael momentarily. Um, when he calls back, we will resume the clip or area. Um, I don't know if his power went out or something happened, but I know the Skype like sound quality got like really bad towards the end. There when he was explaining his G zone, and then I just lost him completely. So I'm going to try to check and see if we can get him back. And then at that point, I'll cut the clip and I'll put the clip back in. But until then, see you guys. All right, guys, we're back. I don't know what happened. Skype's terrible. But Michael's going to continue with talking about Dismal. And I think that was the last card of his deck anyways that he was on. So.
Yep. So Dismal's great. It protects certain rear guards that are important, key combo pieces like Ho-Oh, which are really important. But also, I really hate dimensional robos. I really hate when they drop a Laurel and drop a field and then swing into rear guard and think they're cheeky, thinking that I ain't gonna guard it. I'm just gonna throw down that dismal and say, nope, that rear guard's not being hit. You wasted your turn. Turn to me. Win.
Yeah, I was saying that I thought that you ran the Dismal for the VMAX like matchup because Venture getting VMAX is also pretty abysmal, but DI is like so lucky
Yeah,
they're just
I
able to give.
didn't even come.
Yeah, DI is like super lucky against both D Robo and VMAX. They can just give resist to their Vanguard, and you can't target their Vanguard with VMAX skill. So
Why not? Why not?
yeah, exactly. Why not? But yeah. Anyways,
Living the good life.
yeah, I know. Did you have any interviews you wanted to give? I mean, not interviews. Ha, shoutouts.
Yeah. So, shout out to my buddy Joe Campbell. He got me into this game. He's been with me since day one. He is awesome. Shout out to Dan Oliveri, who helped me with all my testing, listened to every single card choice I made down to the minuscule one, and helped me test, albeit it was against Kamu. It's the absolute weirdest matchup you could have, but I got very used to the long game. Thank you. Thank you to the rest of my teammates, Kyrie Merriweather and Hezekiah Raphael, for being awesome test partners, for listening to me go on about how different scenarios could play out. Thank you to everybody in the Cardfight community who's known me, who's supported me, who's just been friends with me. You guys are awesome. Yeah, that handles it.
And awesome. I know Joe and Kyrie from the ARG Nat, so they're definitely pretty cool guys. I don't believe that I got to meet the Ezekiel guy that you've mentioned, but I'm sure I will sometime. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. With that being said, that has been the interview. Thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry for the connection issues. I'll try to patch that up in video editing. And we loved having you on the show, Michael. So thank you for joining us on the channel.
Thank you. I love being here.
All right. And with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire and Michael from New York or Michael from Philly, however you prefer to see that. And we'll see you guys later.
Philly.
All right. Bye, guys.